My name is Joshua K. Sabra Esquire, and with him as always, Dr. Miles Salisbury, and you're listening to the Miles Ahead podcast, the intersection between mental, physical, and spiritual health for those on the path of the warrior. Stay tuned. After much technical difficulty, we are able to do a janky version of a recording due to with the little bootstrapping. So yeah, nothing like spending an hour rearranging the furniture and plugging and unplugging things to really get you fired up for a podcast.
Yeah, this is the things that make me throw phones. So if the audio quality sounds poor, we are talking directly into an iPhone rather than a microphone with the professional shit that I paid for that doesn't work right now. But we're going to figure out that.
Learning how to use the tools. We're growing and changing. So already we got some good friction. We got some grist for the mill.
Grist for the fucking mill. A lot of grist.
What are you listening to right now, Miles? Like where's your head at? You still in M83?
What was it recently? Javier Rude, heard him before? He's Australian. Very good.
No.
I don't even know what to classify that guy. He's just good. Like folky, kind of all over the place. Very creative.
I love it. I think Men at Work is the last time I listened to an Australian band. So what is it called again?
Javier Rude, like R-U-D-D, I believe.
Javier Rude. Cool.
I don't know if I'm saying that right, but
all right. Well, now I've got something new to check out. It's folky.
Amongst other things, yeah, it's hard to explain. It's really good. It's very talented.
In that one way so far, you're that's of all the things that you've told me about, your music selection is very Portland, like Iron and Wine, folk. You like folk sound, a little bluesy.
Oh, I'm all over the place.
Yeah,
I got country in there. I got electronic music. Got everything. The only one I can't do, which is hilarious because I'm named after Miles Davis, is fucking jazz. I cannot. Oh, and jam bands like Fish or Grateful Dead. Shoot me now. Like, I need a song to end at some point, and they just keep going. It's
yeah.
Like, there's no break, and like, maybe that's why they're all on acid, because then it makes sense. I'm not just not on acid. Maybe just have to do acid. I don't know.
Yeah, jazz is a good one. Jazz to me is like a very specific cocktail. It's great when it's great, and then if you're not in that specific mood, I love Frank Sinatra, but like so many of his songs don't land if I'm not in that mood, whatever it is.
Is that jazz?
Big band, jazz.
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know what he
like. I do like some Miles Davis songs.
Yeah.
But because it's just him and like whatever he's playing. That sounds really bad than an instrument he's playing. But when it's like 15 people and they're kind of just freestyling of each other, it sounds like a cacophony, not a symphony, and I don't like that.
Doesn't he play the trumpet?
Trumpet, yeah. That's it, yeah. That one thing.
Yeah.
I'm a strings guy, not a horns guy. Yeah, just like like what is happening? There's no rhyme or reason to this. It's like a chaos.
I think we could have a separate podcast where you just scat Miles Davis or your impression of Miles Davis, and I think a lot of people would find that really entertaining, including me.
Yeah, we're finding out what irritates me. It's that musicals, that's high on the list of irritations.
And musicals. Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Why are we singing this? You could just explain.
I am singing my lines. Just talk.
Yeah.
Be a play or be a fucking opera. Don't make it's oil and water. And then karaoke. Shoot me now. Another one. Can't do it.
Wait, you can't stand watching other people sing?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Or I wouldn't want to do it either. Like once they hear me sing poorly. You know what the word karaoke means? It comes from Japanese. It means tone deaf.
Well played. Well
At least
played,
I think
Japan.
that's what it means, but that's
well played, Japan.
Yeah.
That's good if that's what it means.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like seeing people succeed at things and fail at things, which is why I do like karaoke. I don't know how off key I am until I sing karaoke, and then I'm like, wow, I thought I sounded like Garth Brooks. I don't at all.
In your car, you do when you're singing with him.
No, Garth. You know, the music is doing most of the work. You know, you're singing. I could really just be lip syncing when it comes down to it. But okay, so you're in Australia.
Where are you?
Listening to folk music, and I'm I'm feeling a little more metal. I was scrolling through a lot of thrash metal. I was listening to Metallica, Anthrax, uh, listening to some good metal last week, and I think I sent you a couple of Metallica songs. I was like, I'm feeling this right now.
Metallica's always good.
Yeah, they're good. They're they're good enough with their instruments. They play them really well. Iron Maiden, Metallica, they have like it's operatic, Dream Theater. It's like, really, really seeing what the guitars and drums can do, and they're good at it instead of just like hardcore, which I feel like is just noise.
Yeah.
It's just like it's you could tell they're very emotional people playing hardcore. If you like hardcore, good for you. You probably not listen to this podcast anyway. But okay, so you're in Australia and I'm in a metal mood, and we're investigating the power of the dark side today. I'm really excited about this conversation because the the there's this recurring theme in my life. I don't know if you feel this way, that the I've felt in multiple moments in my life as though I was cursed, like I was doomed to repeat some scenario or to always feel this way, or to be living a version of reality that I felt like was happening to me or thrust upon me. And a lot of times what I was missing was the what an asset that the circumstances have been to me. And the latest feeling of that we'll kind of launch into this whole topic with. But it's like, when 2020 happened and I lost the gym and I moved out to the suburbs, I felt like my repeat, that I was doomed to not have community, to lose the things I cared about and that I was trying to build, and that I was always going to be adrift. And I felt like that was this huge curse. And also, it's been a huge blessing to be always sailing and never arriving, and to live the life of the explorer and of the traveler and of the Viking in that way. Just there's always the next. You have nothing but the clothes on your back and the wind in your hair, and it's been a really lovely, charmed existence with all the adventures and the people that I've met along the way. And it's funny how, like, the thing that I'm the most angry at, I'm also the most grateful for. And this conversation is so good and healing if we can look at our mess as our message and the inspiration for the painting that we're going to do. And also, like, the coolest powers of the force are all the dark side powers, right? Like, who cares about moving rocks when you could force choke someone? So we're going to get into that today.
Force choking is a good technique.
That's right. It saves you so much energy. You don't have to shoot them. So yeah, so what I want to talk about is how pain and anger and some of the darker, quote unquote, negative emotions can be great sources of motivation and great source of passion and pride, depending on how you play your hand. That's what I want you to get out of this. What are your thoughts?
You're talking about pain motivation?
Just like with the concept of using the dark side as a force for good.
Mm-hmm. The poison as the medicine, so to speak. I always think of the shadow side, the Jungian concept. It's basically the place where you uh, suppress or repress things. Repress is the unconscious process of putting it there. Suppression is consciously pushing it there. Like, you're doing it. Repression, you don't really know you're doing it. It's all things we don't want to deal with, all the pain, all the sadness, all the shit, all the trauma, or things that were forced upon you to put there. Because there's a concept in Jungian psychology called the golden shadow. So good things can be there too. Like, say that you grew up very musically inclined, but your dad's like, you're going to be an accountant. So you shoved all that musical stuff down to please your dad. And you got out and you got your accounting degree. And you get to be about 43 and go, fuck this. and you start listening to what's going on in there, and you do some shadow work, you can find out, oh, I've had all this latent musical ability. You can go into the shadow and reclaim that. That's the golden shadow. That's so positive, negative is what we just stuff into this big giant bag. You know, in IFS, it's the exiles, the stuff that's the wounds, that stuff that just hurts, that's down there that we don't want to really pay attention to or feel for. You know, maybe adaptive reasons growing up because of trauma or whatever. You know, we all do it whether we want to or not. We all got stuff in our shadow. Another way to find out if you got shadow stuff going on is when you have like a sort of an overreaction. So one of my big ones, here, another pet peeve, bad drivers.
Mm-hmm.
For a long time, that just annoyed the shit out of me. I think I talked about this before on the podcast, but when I did some shadow work, like, why does this bother me so much? Like, yeah, to the normal person, this would irritate them, but I'm like, I'm overdoing it, and I don't like it. Why does this bother me? What? It's incompetence. Okay, I drill it down to incompetence. Like, I just hate incompetence. Like, why do I hate that so much? Like, oh, I judge myself for being incompetent all the time. I
Mm.
just didn't want to feel it, so I'm projecting onto this person. They're
Mm.
incompetent, not me. So when you have an overreaction to something, check that out. Like, is that within you, and you're just putting it on something
So you're skipping ahead. You're talking about ways in to
to,
the shadow side.
uh, yeah, to recognize it. Yeah. So what is the shadow? Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's talk about this. Um, because you went from pain and irritation as a that you're feeling towards traffic to getting into like
Or am I avoiding that?
what your sort of internal story or insecurity is that you're uh triggered by.
Mm.
Now that's very wise. Um, but even I want to zoom out and want to a second ago into a kind of a bigger picture thing that you shared is that we can repress and suppress
Mhm.
positive things as easily as negative things, or I'm using quotes because positive and negative, but like
Right.
you can have emotions and fears and you know things that or passions that you repress um, consciously or unconsciously, or suppress, repress, like you define those as repression is the
Element.
unconscious choice of it. Suppression is is the conscious choice of tamping down
Mm-hmm.
on certain parts of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And you talked about um, you can find some good things in there, meaning that you can through external cueing, usually someone's telling you, hey, it's inconvenient for you to do this, show up this way, feel this.
Mm-hmm.
And they can sometimes, it could be inconvenient for them or for you to demonstrate who you are in terms of your, what your sexuality, your creativity, your competency, your autonomy, whatever it is, can be all of that can be suppressed and repressed.
Correct.
Um, And so there's this the golden shadow,
Mm-hmm.
and then so that's like a whole part, or there's lots of parts of us that are included in that. And there is I think I don't know how you would define it, but uh the positive consequences of our negative experiences, right? So like if you have to move around a lot and you've lived an unmoored life at times, like I have, I, I also got the opportunity to develop the skill of making friends and building quality relationships in the community as a survival mechanism. And I can be resentful all I want about why I had to develop that skill set, but it's a great skill set, and it is a very adaptive behavior to create positive, mutually beneficial relationships in your community. Uh, so when those you talk about, there's a golden shadow, but what do you is there a word for those positive attributes that develop through inconvenient or unfortunate circumstances?
I think that goes back to our last podcast. Obstacle is the way. You know, you had to work harder in those scenarios with that obstacle, and the reason you were successful is because you had to do that. It hurts, but you learned so much through that pain. That was the obstacle.
Okay.
So that's maybe a slightly separate concept than the shadow. We're talking about um, the dark side of us, meaning the painful experiences we've had. That's
Well,
that's slightly adjacent to the
so
shadow side.
so um yeah, I think even defining like what we're talking about is darkness, but the so many people that which is why I was excited to talk about this. So many people that I admire have a lot of dark motivations. They're radically insecure. They don't feel like they're enough. And because of that, driven a, a lot through trauma, and not solely by trauma. I just want to be clear. Like, it's not like trauma equals like, it's like the success hack. But people who are wildly successful often have a relentless ambition fueled by some sort of, primary injury.
Hmm.
In the case of Tim Ferriss, who recently in the last year or two shared his sexual abuse,
Hmm.
what a healing conversation that is for him and so many people who are relentlessly ambitious and perfectionistic and very critical of themselves. And in to have that similarity of background and know that you can leverage, not leverage, yeah,
Maybe, yeah.
maybe the leverage the anger and the disappointment and the resentment and whatever all the other feelings that come up with that background, use those as fuel for the furnace to create
Grist for the mill.
grist for the mill to create. Yeah, I was jumping around metaphors, but use that as a as the resource to create a bunch of assets for your personality. Right?
Yes, and you should do that. But on the other hand, you should also be trying to heal the wound that started it. Otherwise, you're going to do like your first mention of just running around doing dark shit and not knowing it or knowing it. You know, y- using the dark side of the force. If you want to use a Star Wars analogy, it's the same energy. They're just manipulating it in a selfish, nefarious way versus the opposite when it's very giving and helpful to other people.
Yeah, the what we want to be is boringly successful in the end. I think having some rocket fuel to get you away from a position that's bad is a good
Is
thing.
good. Yeah.
And along the way, if you don't do the work, you will be consumed by it.
Yeah, you're flammable.
Yeah, so you'll burst into flame, and you'll like the Challenger, you'll go up before you even get out of orbit because
A
the
mechanical error.
yeah, I mean, when Tim Ferriss was very vocal about being suicidal when he was
Mm-hmm.
graduating from, I don't know, Harvard or
Princeton.
Princeton, yeah, some really prestigious school.
By a fluke, he was saved by his mom
Yeah,
because the book "How to Kill Yourself" or something like that was sent to his mom's house rather than his house or something. And his mom called him and said, "Are you okay?"
yeah, and she had the courage to ask twice
Mm,
because like a lot of times people will give you the answer they think you want, and then she, was just like, no, but seriously, and she dug in a little bit,
mm.
and that's a good mom, that's a
Mm-hmm.
good human.
Imagine a world without Tim Ferriss. Like, how close was that to happening? That's crazy to think about.
Mm.
We almost lost all of that because of what was going on with him. I mean, he talks about his sexual trauma, but also having, I think, bipolar disorder, bipolar depression on top of it.
Oh, 100%. And that's that that's the that's the message that we're like starting with, is that there is a ton of opportunity for personal growth in both the achievement and in the realm of self-healing if you're willing to do the work. And I wouldn't say that your life will always implode upon itself. That's just been my experience. And that's been the experience of many, many people who have not been willing to address their stuff.
Mm.
Um, Alex Ramosi, he recently, not recently, he shares his like kind of his life coming apart a few times with like his business failing and getting a DUI and just having no direction and wanting to implode it on himself. And his wife, being a very compassionate person, he was I think he said to her, like, um, I'm a sinking ship. Get away from me. You should leave. And she was like, I'm not going to divorce you. I will divorce you if you don't just pick one thing and stick with it, because had his irons in too many fires,
Mm.
among many other things. But he's self-described in his podcast. He says that his biggest motivation is to fill this hole inside of him, and he knows that it's dark, and he knows that it sounds destructive. And having been in therapy and like been willing to sit in with this stuff that we're talking about, he is still extremely ambitious and has a huge ego, and in a lot of positive and negative ways. But he's with that, and he's not fighting against it. He's just riding the wave, and he's crushing it objectively. He just does amazing work, and is one of the reasons why I'm successful in my business, because of the things he freely shares and he's built through his brands and companies. So, um, but it was probably one of the earlier times I remember somebody talking about their motivation being from coming from a very dark place, and that being okay. And it gave me a lot more compassion for myself, and willingness to be curious.
Mm. Filling the hole. So he felt like something was sort of wrong with him, or something's missing, and he had to do something to.
The crux of it is his dad wanted him to live the life that his dad thought he should live. So his dad was trying to live vicariously through his son. You know, wanted his son to be very high status. His dad's a doctor and an immigrant who taught himself English, and he practiced medicine in like John Hopkins or someplace in Baltimore, and was just very ambitious and did it all by himself. Single parent dad, and Alex, of course, deeply admires his dad, but his dad was very hard on him in terms of his performance, in terms of what he wanted him to achieve, and like specifically how he wanted to live his life. And he, having lived that, realized that in order to be alive to himself, he had to die to his father, and that started the journey of like kind of letting go of what his dad wanted for him. So not feeling like you're enough for your parents' love is a pretty ubiquitous theme.
Yep,
And
it's a rough one.
it's certainly rough. But I think the thing that I love about him and lots of people is, if you're aware of that conversation inside of yourself, you're already in the driver's seat, because
Mm.
you know what's going on. I think a lot of people don't even know what's going on. They're just like, is this enough, Dad? I went to college. Is this enough, Dad? I got married. Is this enough, Dad? I have kids. Is this enough, Dad? And pretty soon, like, you're 40 and your dad's like, dude, I don't care what you do. Like, I kind of just wanted you to do what I was doing because it made I was happy and successful, and I thought that's what you make you happy and successful, right? But all right, so we're ranting about this a little bit. We're going a little long, but the point is that the conflict and the pain and the drive aren't all bad things if you can stay in the conversation and confront your maladaptive behaviors. Because he, struggled with alcohol. My words, not his. I don't know if he would say he struggled with it, but he drank a lot and suffered the consequences of it. But he got into that and he dealt with it. He quit drinking, and he said his world got louder. Everything got much more intense for him when he stopped drinking. So, but that allowed him the motivation and the friction to continue to make changes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a person's experience. I've shared some of mine. And what do you like? How does that fit in with the concepts and tools that maybe have helped you, or that you want people to take away?
And this comes up in um, my practice. We often talk about like not crushing the symptom. When you feel sad, mad, angry, whatever emotion, uh, it seems like in Western society we were like, well, let's use alcohol. Let's use a pill. Let's run away. Let's crush it. Let's not feel that. It doesn't even matter. It's like getting like rolling your ankle. Like, no, I still got a ruck. I'm just gonna keep going, and you're just like,
Destroying your ankle.
yeah, just keep going, 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 going. And you can do that for a couple miles, but at what risk, right? So how are we doing that with our inner world? Like the symptoms are for a reason. It's trying to tell us something. If like you're sad, like what, why? Like
Mm,
why are we sad?
mm.
Wait, what? Okay, let's stop and face this feeling, which includes, yeah, you got to sit and feel it, but what's the message? Like it's a symptom for a reason. To roll your ankle, it hurts, so you stop and go, am I okay? If you get cut, you stop and like, am I bleeding out? You tend to the wound, right? But it's the same version of going, no, I'm not, I'm bleeding out. No, I'm not. I'm just going to keep going, la, 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 nothing's wrong. And then you're dead. Um, Similar with this concept, the symptoms there for a reason, and it sucks. I don't want to, we don't want to feel it, but there's something there to teach us, like, why, like, what, let's go there. What does it have to say? And is it accurate or not? Well, let's find out what is and what isn't. Emotions aren't truth, but they're uh, trailheads to some sort of truth.
Well, and it's also like the emotion that you're experiencing that you're either wanting to suppress, repress, or run away from
Hmm.
doesn't change what you have to do. But a lot of times, I like stick with the ruck marching, or let's like if you're in a military unit and there is like confusion and fear, and these are emotions. The mission's clear. You still know where you're going,
Mm.
but you don't know what the enemy's doing.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't even know what your people are doing if you don't have, adequate
Mm-hmm.
communications.
Mm-hmm.
And when you don't have communication, fear starts to creep in. You start to feel alone. Like,
Chaos.
hey, are we gonna, are we gonna get air support? Or is there anybody to be there when we get there? What's gonna happen? Like, and everybody's thinking about this. And a good leader will just narrate the situation and give a little bit of a pressure relief to
Mm-hmm.
those emotions, because the mission doesn't change.
Mm-hmm.
But you also can't bulldoze people into performance. It
Correct.
doesn't work. And what will happen is you think like, okay, so maybe a discipline unit or a disciplined group of soldiers will still complete the mission without complaint, but their ability to communicate with each other will degrade. They'll get sharp with each other. The morale will go down. That means that their communication will be received and given as easily and as readily. So they're going to slow down the op tempo because of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it won't be noticeable in a day, but you'll notice it in a month.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't have a leader that's continually giving, of narrating the experience in a positive way,
Mm-hmm.
saying like, hey, you know what? We don't have comms right now. We're gonna have comms again in 2 hours. Like we're and at the pace we're going, we're gonna have really good visibility when we get up there too. So not only are we gonna have comms, we're gonna be able to see. So we just got to get up there. So we're just setting meaningful benchmarks
Mm-hmm.
and creating a narrative that everybody's on the same page with. And that does wonders for morale and clarity and certainty and all those things. It doesn't change just because just because you are afraid doesn't mean you still don't go to work.
Right.
But you have to, but I think the onus is for each of us to communicate and check in with ourselves first and then with other people, the people around us,
Mm-hmm.
so that we're not filling up that space with noise and beating ourselves up, because that's what decreases morale, is relentless self-criticism and fear.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the leader is the one noticing the symptoms, which is, if I have air support or whatever going on, he's noticing that's depression, that's anxiety, and he's telling the enlisted guys or whatever, this is a situation. I'm paying attention. So you, from your highest self, you have your, and IFS, your other selves within you. You're telling them, yes, I see that you're hurt. Yes, I see that scares you. Yes, there's pain there. I notice, and they like that. It's like, you're paying attention. Thank God someone's paying attention. I don't have to do it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you can trust me to be the leader, just like the enlisted man can trust the officer to notice what the fuck is going on and translate it back. Yeah, I'm aware. Like, shit's fucked up. Okay, you're on it. Great. I can stick to my mission here, objective, and I don't have to freak out. So you got to be your inner general.
And is for damn sure it goes the other way too. If you're actively ignoring problems or don't know what's going on, then the symptoms get louder.
Much louder.
And then that's when shit starts to come unraveled.
Mm-hmm. Where do you want to go?
Well, we're resuming, and you said something really important about well, we mentioned post-traumatic growth, which we'll get into, but talk about the motivation for becoming a therapist and what like yeah. So tell me about why you got into this and why are you still doing it?
Yeah, that's the things we talk about in the pauses and the breaks, which you probably heard because of this lovely software we're using right now. Yeah, we were taking pee breaks and we're talking about pain motivation, or how does it translate to our work? And I was saying that the more and more I do this work, like people always ask me, why did you become a therapist? And it's like the common question, because no sane person grows up to want to do that. When you're a kid, you want to be a fireman or whatever. And I wanted to be in the military or be an archaeologist. And then the divorce happened, and it was like, I want to be whoever fixes people to not feel the way I do. And then I discovered there was this thing called like a family therapist. I didn't know what that was, but my parents both went to some version of a therapist when I was young, when they were divorced, and that's when I was like, oh, that's a thing. I think maybe I want to do that. So years go by, uh, and then more recently, I'm like digging into it deeper. And like, did I go into this field? We're all wounded healers. Did I go into this field as a sort of repetition compulsion? Like, am I doing this just to, do I feel like I have to like fix people to be good, to be a good human? Like, I thought I had to fix my parents to be okay, to be good. Like they'll show me love once I fix them. If I can do the parent trap thing, get them back together, then I'm validated or something. So did I unconsciously choose this field? And is there a part of me that feels responsible for everybody I see? And if they don't get fixed, whatever that means, then I'm bad. That's been coming to a lot recently, and it was not in my awareness till more recently. So the job's to differentiate, like, now this is maybe, we talk about obstacles away and like the careers that people choose, they get put in shit situations, but they take the shit sandwich and they do something with it. Like, okay, I did this horrific divorce I had to go through with my parents, and that made me, have this sort of uh, agitation that I had to deal with. But the fact that I had to do that made me a better communicator, better aware of other people's feelings, emotionally intelligent, all these gifts that came from the pain. This is kind of the way you start the podcast. Uh, so that's good. But now I have to differentiate with things like, I'm not here to um, fix people necessarily. They're going to fix themselves. I'm just their guide. It's like you being a personal trainer and like saying, okay, here's the move now. And then you grab their wrist and you start lifting the wrist and like, they're not getting the reps, right? You're doing it for them. Can't do that. That's caretaking, but I'm showing them what to do. So in your job, you're showing them what to do and they do the work. So I have to do that and sort of work at that part of myself that thinks, well, even though I can see where they need to be, they've got to find their way. I can't force that. It's not my ultimate responsibility. That's them. I'm just a guide. Yes, I'm a healer, but I don't have. It's not the same as it was with my parents. I'm good no matter what. Just because they don't progress or do progress doesn't mean I'm good or bad inside. That's little to do with me. That's about them. So that's been the more recent work, and it's just funny is that was in the shadows. That was not in my conscious awareness till more recently. Like, because I was listening to the symptom, I was coming in here doing this work, and the usual joy I had was kind of slipping. I was starting to get irritable or depressed or like functified. Like, why is this happening? This whole second half of life purpose and meaning, is this really it for me? Part of that I think was the need to listen to that pain, and like as I did that, I started to realize that maybe I'm was doing a giant repetition compulsion of thinking I have to fix people to be good.
What do you mean repetition compulsion?
That's a Freudian term. Compulsed to repeat old patterns until we become aware of them. So what's a classic example? Like the going back to a domestic violence scenario, like the battered wife going back to choosing dudes that are gonna batter them or whatever, thinking that this time if I get them to love me and I fix them, then I'm lovable.
You're creating a familiar pain.
Creating familiar pain, yeah. Not knowing, because it's not conscious yet, out of the shadow, that that's not going to work. You once you do that, then the thing shifts. But When you don't, you're unconsciously compulsed to repeat old patterns, repetition, compulsion.
Um, well, you said a lot. You talked about the gifts from your upbringing, which are like being present and articulate and be a good communicator. And the maybe a burden was the desire to, get your parents back together and try to create this happily ever after outcome that
Hmm.
neither of them wanted.
So I could be good again, so that I could
So that
not
you'd be
feel
worthy of
anxiety,
love.
so I could be worthy of love. Yeah.
And you became, when did you just say you just recently became aware of that narrative or that thread?
Yeah, and that in its loudest form. Yeah. I mean, I always knew, like, I always joke, oh, we're all wounded healers. Yeah, well, no one gets into this field unless they've experienced pain. And that's probably true for like 9 out of 10 people.
Well, you're not a human unless you express pain.
Well, true, but what person grows up and goes, I want to be a therapist? Like, no one.
Someone who wants to figure out what the fuck is going on with their parents.
Or themselves.
Yeah.
But,
Well, yeah, for sure.
or they go into the medical field. Yeah. They want to be helpers. But this specific field, I think all of us get it because why else would you choose to go into pain and listen to other people's pain all day? Pretty masochistic.
So Dawn, even though you could hear that conversation, you didn't, and this totally applies to me because I'll oftentimes listen to mentors say, "You're probably making this mistake." I'm like, "Not me. I'm not a dummy." But it's because we don't. I don't think we're aware of how emotional we are and how emotionally motivated. And in my experience, the more someone swears that they're logical, the more emotional that person tends to be.
Mm.
Like their stories are cogent, but the generator of the entire narrative is emotion.
Correct. Yeah, it's a great way not to have to deal with your emotions, just to go logical.
Yes, to analyze them to death. So but so your motivation to fix everyone in your life was unconsciously why you got into this field to be a helper or a contributing factor. Now, the conundrum that you find yourself in is helping people in the therapy setting. Is it part of this Groundhog's Day event,
right,
for you to be with other people while they just stay in this conversation that you've been in your whole life?
Yeah, I think I have to work to consciously work with that part of me if I go to the IFS language that wants to get people fixed as soon as possible, to say that, okay, I'm a good boy. I'm good. I'm okay. This old young part of me. And if I bring that to my awareness when I'm in session and sort of, okay, I see you, but there are these other parts of me that are perfectly healthy, and like the big picture is we're helping them, the patient, find their way. And you have tools and you have advice, but we're not in the advice giving business in therapy. It's the opposite of coaching. Like, coaching will show up from time to time, but if we give advice, it's like I'm telling you what to do and I'm disempowering that person. They have to find their way and pick up their own power. That's what we're trying to do. That's the difference between psychotherapy and coaching in one dimension. And so what coaching can fit in, it's just setting and timing. Because I can sit down with someone like in 5 sessions and know exactly what they need to do for the most part. And not in their heart of hearts, but like I can see where the initial problem came from. I hear some ideas how you can work with it. But if I throw that all at somebody before they unpack all their stuff, then I'm just sort of, they're ceding all their power to me. And then that puts a lot of pressure on me to be the one that fixes them. And that's not the way it's supposed to work. They always say you shouldn't work harder than your patient does. Like, that makes sense.
Well, so what you're saying is when you're with people, you're in conflict, not in conflict, but you just need to be aware of the part of you that wants to be worthy of love and is doing it for you.
Correct. It's not
and
about
the part that you're doing it for them.
Yep.
And we also added on there that you can't give them the answer before they ask the right questions, because they have to empty their cup before they will feel like you understand them. and they've said their piece.
In some way, yeah, we want to empower them. We have, tips, tricks, techniques, all these psychological theories and things and ways to work with humans. Ultimately, it's the relationship that heals. If there's no rapport, then someone's not going to open up to you. So that's got to be established. And once that is established, then yeah, you sort of they kind of guide the session. You go with them. Some people come in and like they expect you to tell them everything, and then other people come in and they have like a 10-point plan that they want you to get on board with. And so, where do you say yes, but then kind of go against that a little bit to help them? Like some people need to just come in and have like, okay, you want to come in with a 10-point plan. I want you to come in with zero idea what you want to talk about next time. That'd be when I go into more of the coaching, but you got to get to know your person before you do something like that. But ultimately, they're the ones empowering themselves and teaching themselves by processing and talking and bouncing back and forth with me, or in like a men's group that happens as well.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like the overlap. Well, it sounds like part of your job is they come into you and they have a map of the world and they're describing things to you, and you're saying, "Oh, that's not a tree, that's a rock. We call it a rock because Jung identified it as this." And so you give them like texture and sort of precise relief in terms of how these things fit in the world, and they get to decide their relationship to it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm offering different viewpoints and way to see things, or their blind spots or whatever. But yeah, they're finding their own way ultimately.
The um the desire to help or fix other people. I mean, I think there's a personality characteristic that most humans have. If they see like a cup of spilt milk, they want to turn the cup right, dry the table. Like most people just have that instinct, right? Like this, person's in a lot of pain. Let's provide some relief, to unnecessary. So I think all humans have some of that in them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the where in the health field it could become dark is, in my experience, coaches, trainers, mentors, teachers, if they are doing it or are performing their craft for a sense of significance so that they can be the person with the answer, and like they can be, and that necessarily is a bad thing, but it can become bad if it's to gratify a need for the practitioner. And sometimes that's just to be heard and listened to. And then, in fact, and having dealt with a lot of that myself, the having a big motivation to have an impact and be significant is, it can be part of your motivation if the how am I trying to say this? It's dangerous when you're doing something for yourself and not for the not for the person you're working for.
Yep.
But it doesn't mean it's bad. Back to like the thesis of this conversation, I recently realized that part of what I get out of coaching is holding space and crafting an empowering narrative with people and for people. And part of it is just like I like to hear myself talk. And as I started to get those needs met and like just reconcile with myself, the drive to for some of that has dissipated, but it was actually a very important part of what I do. And so I've been realizing like, okay, just because I don't need to be heard anymore doesn't mean people don't need ideas. They doesn't mean they don't need to get these beliefs reframed. So there's still a lot of teaching and holding space and preaching and proselytizing and but there's an element of faith to this stuff. Like you people do need someone to enter their world with a different light and paint it with a different brush.
Yeah.
And that's not bad.
No.
So realizing that I might have been motivated at the beginning for myself, and in the end that's what the audience needed, that's okay.
Mhm.
And the best thing in life is to find yourself in a place where the world needs you to play your part, where you being yourself is the medicine.
Mm.
That is a wonderful place to be.
I love that. You being yourself, being the medicine to what the world needs.
Yeah. Yeah, because like when I I watch, whether it's a movie or an actor or entertainment or just anytime I'm taking in something, and I'm watching somebody be their best version of themselves, and that could be somebody who's making us laugh as a stand-up comedian. Their presence is what's doing it,
Mhm.
and it's as we've seen. Thanks Netflix for all these really great comedy specials. A lot of it is therapy for the freaking comedian.
For sure. Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And so I'm coming to peace with the catharsis that comes from my job of helping people figure out how to make their lives easier and better and with more empowered health conversations.
Mhm.
That's awesome. It's awesome that it's therapy to me.
Yeah.
And as long as I'm aware of it and I'm not being gross with getting my needs met in front of theirs,
Correct.
then I'm winning.
Yeah, you want to still be a sort of influenced by the people you work with and open to that. Otherwise, you're just like like how Freud used to do. He used to sit, like have them lay down and sit behind him and smoke a cigar and just write down what they said. And they just babble. You don't want to be like a passive participant in the therapeutic relationship. You want, yeah, if, you will be affected by your patients or your what do you call your people,
Student.
clients, students. You will be affected by them for good and bad. If they're pain or they're triumphs, you're going to feel that, and that's okay. But yeah, it's ultimately about them and not you. But you still factor. It's sort of a catch-22 in a way. It's a tricky,
It's high art, right?
good way to put it.
It's like improv comedy at its best. It can only be done well if everyone's participating.
That's it.
It's not just them, not
That's
just
it.
you.
That's it. Yeah. Well said.
So the start of this conversation was motivation. Miles was very self-aware when he shared with us his desire to help other people came from his desire to be worthy of love and to heal his family. That's I mean like that's Star Wars, like that's like holy grail stuff. Like you go and try to find the talisman to heal the land, and along the way you become a completely different person. And what you were thinking you would get out of it is not what you ended up getting out of it, but you do heal the land because you heal yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm still in the healing myself process.
Yeah.
I mean, but it probably doesn't really end in some way. You grow and then you're good, and you hurt and you grow and then you're good.
No, but the world changes around you
Yes. Yeah.
in real time.
Hmm.
I I the world has changed so much to me over the last few years, and the world has changed over the last few years. But I've changed, and my relationship to everything has changed. I feel a kinder, more gentler world. I also see the world and the people in it as more resourced than they used to be because I'm not as desperate and as isolated and as self-critical and as removed because I'm participating more.
Mm.
And they say, one of the tenets in my spiritual doctrine is as within, so without. So like, we don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are. And through this process of healing yourself, your world changes in very dramatic ways. And hey, you know, making an extra $20,000 a year will also change your life in very dramatic ways because, having more breathing room, disposable income makes your choices easier and gives you more options. So it's good to have tangible change, but also the spiritual change of just being more at peace with yourself is, I mean, that's worth, I mean, you can't buy that. You literally cannot buy that.
People would try to.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Um, okay, so we covered motivation to getting into a situation or into a role, the pitfalls of making it about you. Um, you know, it's very it's very subtle when I am not self-aware. We talked about uh hearing these narratives that you think apply to other people. And it's almost like thou doth possess too much. It's like if I'm really objecting to something that something applies to me, it probably applies to me the most.
Shadow work.
And uh, it's very much worth asking the question like that you asked about traffic. Why am I so fired up about this? Why am I so aggravated? Like everyone would be happy or unhappy if they got stuck in a traffic jam, but like, throwing things, breaking things, screaming, those are like orders of magnitude more than a typical reaction, right?
Correct.
So it's like noticing where you have outsized reactions to what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to do that audit. I
We all
did.
do.
Have you ever read, did we talk about this? The Work,
Oh yeah, I have that book. I haven't read it yet. What's her name?
Byron Katie?
Yeah, yeah.
The Work, it's one of the worksheets in the Work was write down all the people that make you mad. And so this is how I knew I had a lot of work to do. I said, I took a pen and paper and I wrote down the steps. And on step one, I said, write down all the people that make you very upset. And then I was like, I don't get mad at anyone. And then I set the pen down and I was like, those are the words of someone who is about to climb the clock tower and murder everyone. I'm never mad. I've never been upset.
Repression and suppression.
And so it's even if you're asking the questions, you really have to sit with yourself, give yourself time, space to explore and go deep. Otherwise, you'll say shit like that. Like, this doesn't apply to me. I don't get mad. And you're the one with the high blood pressure, and you're the one that is coming apart at the seams.
Mm-hmm.
You're the one with the drinking problem. You're the one that is, making poor decisions, whether it's with their personal relationships, professional relationships, and you're the one sabotaging yourself. That's been my experience. And uh, you're lucky if other people notice it before you and they can cue you in on it. But oftentimes I would also hide it. Then it would be a secret,
Mm-hmm.
be a secret shortcoming,
Mm-hmm.
secret failure. So you've been warned. But it turns out to then like close the conversation and bring it back to the beginning is that if you were willing to admit that you have blind spots, when I was okay, I'll use more language to me. I had a lot of anger and resentment that was unchecked and I was unaware of. And it wasn't until I was in a near death accident that I sat with any of these feelings through therapy and sat with the questions that we're talking about today, that it really became apparent how much rage I had, how much resentment, how much victimhood I was holding on to. And I was the last person. That was so subtle to me to know that I experienced any of that. And it wasn't until I started to let go of these burdens and forgive myself and other people. And I'm still working on all of this, by the way, but wasn't until it was gone that I realized that I was carrying around all this shit. And the way that I connected with myself, my self love and self respect started to go up. Your self respect starts to go up. You start to honor your word and commitment better. You start to honor your word, and all of a sudden the things that you want happen, because when you put them down on your calendar, when you write them on your vision board, instead of being promises that you never keep, they're part of your greater integrity that you're spiritually beholden to. And things start to come together pretty fast when you start to love and respect yourself enough um, to go out of your way for. And it's not comfortable or convenient, but if you do it, you have a qualitatively different outcome. And it doesn't mean that you're doing physically different things. The way you do them changes, and that changes everything.
Yeah, you had to be broken open, almost literally to be broken open emotionally. It's interesting how that happens sometimes. It was a biking accident. Was that what it
It
was?
was a bicycle accident,
Yeah.
and I was bulldozing through that too. And it wasn't until it was like I I had to let other people help me.
Mm.
And when I did that, it was just so subtle. Someone came over and brought me food and took out my trash. And when they left, I cried. And I cried not because not for inconveniencing them, but I cried for myself because I realized like I was putting that off. I was trying to protect other people from having to help me.
Mm.
And that um that letting other people see me or support me had been something that I'd been avoiding my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And once I realized I was doing that, I didn't know how to change or how to reframe, to learn or integrate whatever part of me that wasn't working. It said that's when I just started having weekly appointments with a therapist, and I was like, I have to figure this out because I don't know how to do it. I don't have the tools. It's not working, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. It wouldn't happen without that accident.
Sometimes these things are the catalysts.
Boom shakalaka.
Mm-hmm. Pain. Pain starts the conversation.
That's it. Yeah. Well, sometimes have to knock you off course, right? Because if everything's working for you, if you're happy, quote unquote, but you're successful and your bills are paid and you have your health and if you're getting everything you're asking for and want, then there isn't really a motivation or need to change. It's only in the course of suffering and not getting something, or you lose your health, you lose your autonomy, then something has to give.
Well, good thing the first noble truth of Buddhism is life involves suffering. Because you always get your chance for this malarkey to happen.
That's right. And it won't stop.
Unfortunately.
So if you're in this, if anything about this conversation appealed to you, uh, comment, leave a review. We'd like to hear, you could DM us. I'm on Instagram, Josh Sabra. Are you on Instagram?
I have a yes, but I have my therapist one, but I don't think comments are enabled. We'll get back to you on that one. Just do it to Josh.
You can DM me. I'm really curious about anybody with the dark side or this shadow work that they haven't done or they have done it and they've gotten a lot from it. I'm super curious because I don't know. This is kind of a newer conversation. It's not brand new. In the last few years, people have been talking about it more, but I really appreciate hearing what you're getting from this and how you're approaching your own humanity and your own change and your own issues. Yeah, enlighten me. Share with me your experience. Comment.
What's your handle?
On IG, it's Josh Sabra, I think, or Coach Josh Sabra.
How do you spell your last name?
Sierra Alpha Bravo Romeo Alpha Whiskey.
Perfect.
There's not a bunch of them. There are a few, but it'll be easy to find me. So reach out, let us know what you got from this, and until next time, stay strong.
And listen to what pain tells you.
Use the dark side of the force.
Get those force chokes going.
That's right. All right. Sabra out.
We're out.